Big Rocco is definitely a bait that will have its time and place in anybody's tackle box, but don't think of it solely, again, just as well, it's a bigger bait. I'm only going to throw this when I'm trying to catch bigger fish. It's going to have those situations too where it's not that much bigger in the grand scheme of things, but it does way more. It casts really well, and that quick dive where it can get down to that 3 or 4 foot. I think you'll see that has a really good application in a lot of fishing. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the garage. In the garage this week, talking a little bit about crankbaits, but especially this new one, the new Big Rocco. This is the one released at ICAST 2024, and a bait that I've been able to have in my box for a little bit before, before ICAST and everything. I've got a box full of them right here, all 15 colors and stuff. But we had I had regular Rocco come out a couple years ago, and it's kind of your standard size square bill. Kind of that 1.5 size, lengthwise, widthwise, weight, all those kind of things. Running depth, it'll run about 5 feet or so, and an excellent all-purpose day in day out square bill. But as soon as we came out with Rocco, we knew then we needed a big one. In a square bill, you need that standard size, but you also need a little bit larger profile bait for some applications, whether that's just you're trying to match larger bait fish or you're targeting bigger fish in general, whatever it may be. But that little bit bigger profile at times, sometimes it'll actually get more bites than a regular size bait. But certainly you can look at that and be like, yeah, that should get a better quality bite day in and day out with that larger bait. So it's funny because if you look at them lengthwise, it's truly only maybe a quarter, half-inch longer bait, but just bulkiness, man. If you compare those two, that big one is a much larger profile. There's just a lot more meat to it. And one thing that I really like about Big Rocco is how heavy this bait is. This bait casts extremely well, and something that I personally do a lot with a little bit larger square bill is making. It's funny to say that how good this bait casts and it being heavier, but I make a lot of short cast with it, and having a really good heavy bait, I'm able to make a little short roll cast, right in around a boat dock, and around overhanging trees, or in tight on a bluffy bank or something. And those little short roll casts with a heavier bait like that are much easier to do than they are with a really light bait. A lot of times you actually have to sit back further and kind of make a longer cast in there, but you can be a lot, you can be really accurate with that heavy bait, making those little short roll casts and stuff. Another part of that is this being a little bit bigger square bill. It'll get on a long cast, it'll get probably 6 feet deep or so. But what that does on those little short casts is that bait gets down to 3 or 4 feet really quickly. Where regular Rocco, I need most of the cast, to get 4+ feet out of it. Big Rocco, I only need, a little short cast, and I can get 3 to 4 feet out of this bait really quickly. So that's some of the other places where I'm going to go to Big Rocco versus just the regular one. Again, that square bill, circuit board lip square bill comes through cover really well. And the bulk of this bait has a lot more buoyancy to it even, and will back out of some of those places where it might get wedged in. It'll, you can just give it slack, pop your line, and that bait will float back out of it, and you can begin your retrieve again. So, yeah, Big Rocco is definitely a bait that will have its time and place in anybody's tackle box, but don't think of it solely, again, just as well, it's a bigger bait. I'm only going to throw this when I'm trying to catch bigger fish. It's going to have those situations too where it's not that much bigger in the grand scheme of things, but it does way more. It casts really well, and that quick dive where it can get down to that 3 or 4 foot. I think you'll see that has a really good application in a lot of fishing. And again, it comes in the same 15 colors that the regular Rocco does. comes in those same colors, and some of those colors are actually kind of exclusive to those square bills, like that bruised citrus shad. Certainly one of my favorites. We don't have that in any other of the OG or the DT lines. That tuxedo shad is another really just simple shad color, but man, I've caught so many bass on that particular color over the years. So couple kind of exclusive colors to Rocco. As far as the setup to fish it on, it's like a what's the term? Broken record. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like a broken record as far as crankbait fishing goes. That Bass Pro cranking stick, 7-foot, medium heavy, platinum reel, 6:8 to 1 gear ratio. The big thing that I do different most of the time with Big Rocco, it is going to be a lot of times a heavy cover bait. With that in mind, the smallest line I'm going to fish it on is 14, but I'll fish it on 17 honestly a lot of the time. That bait being as big as it is, having the lip size that it does, it'll get down pretty quick, even with that 17-pound line. So 17 is kind of my go-to with Big Rocco, but if I need to try to get as much more depth out of it as possible, I will go to 14, but that is as light as I'm going to be fishing Big Rocco on. I guess if you were throwing it out in open water, just on flats or something, you could throw it on 12, but for the way I like to fish it, 14 and 17 is what gets my application done. And that's, having that same rod and reel set up for basically all of my crankbait fishing, anything, sub DT10, it makes it all the same, right? So if I'm throwing tiny, if I'm throwing a DT6, DT8, Big Rocco, having it all on the same rod and reel makes the way that I hook a fish, the way that I fight a fish, all those things exactly the same. So I'm not having to vary any of that kind of stuff because I'm picking up a different bait and a different rod and reel. So trying to do that as much as you can in your fishing, I think will make you a more efficient angler at landing as many of the bites as you get as possible. One last thing with it, just like all the OG stuff comes with those VMC hybrid trebles. Man, those are number 3 short shanks, really good sharp hooks, and that's something that I love about all the baits that we did in the OG line is that that's my favorite hook. So I get this bait out of the pack, no different than you do. You go to Bass Pro, you buy this thing. It's exactly the bait that I open up when I order them from Rapala, and I take it out of the pack, I put it in my box, and then I tie it on in a tournament because it's ready to go with those VMC hybrid trebles on it. So make sure you stop by Bass Pro, grab you a handful of those Big Roccos, and give them a try out there on the water this year. I'll be very interested. I love seeing people's success on the baits that we've designed and created so far. So I love seeing those pictures. Y'all catch fish on them. Be sure to tag me in social media, and I'll try to share a lot of those if at all possible. But again, I love seeing people catch fish on the baits that I've designed. That's a lot of things I take pride in, and fishing, and that certainly is one of them. So y'all keep sending those along. But thanks for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one.